On August 10, 1847, General Winfield Scott and his army marched out of the mountains to discover 3,000 feet below them the Valley of Mexico.
And near its center, the object of all our dreams and hopes, toils and dangers, once the gorgeous seat of the Montezumas. Probably not a man in the column failed to say to his neighbor or to himself, that splendid city shall soon be ours. Winfield Scott.
Not all of the soldiers were as confident as their commander. Even from a distance, they could see that Mexico City would not be easy to capture. The capital was surrounded by lakes and marshes. Only 6 causeways crossed the waters, each entering the city at a fortified gate. Outnumbered, with no hope of reinforcements, the Americans knew that retreat would be impossible. For Captain Kirby Smith, the odds against survival were all too clear.
10,000 troops to conquer a city containing near 300,000 inhabitants. We shall do it, but perhaps pay dearly for it. Mexico must fall, or we must all find a grave.
In Mexico City, church bells sent a frantic alarm echoing through the streets. The unthinkable had become a reality. The Yankee troops were approaching the capital. Since his return from Cerro Gordo, Santa Anna had worked feverishly to rebuild his army. Bells were forged into cannon and closets ransacked for old muskets. Thousands left their jobs to join the National Guard, the pride of the city.
My battalion was formed by bricklayers, tailors, carpenters, in a word, craftsmen. It was called the Independencia Battalion. Our weapons were poor because, being laborers, we were only able to buy old flintlocks. Private Perfecto Falcon.
Between new recruits and loyal veterans, Santa Anna managed to raise an army of more than 25,000 soldiers. Most of the troops were positioned at strategic points around the city. The rest would meet the Yankees east of the capital, at El Peñon, a prominent hill overlooking the National Road. Shouts and cheers filled the air as 7,000 National Guardsmen under Santa Anna's personal command marched toward El Peñon to defend their city and their nation.
Vivas to the army, to General Santana, and to the Republic rang out from all sides. The families run in masses to the streets following the troops. The brother tears himself away from his brother's arms. The wife marches at her recruit's side. The blushing lover tries to appear calm, but tears give her away. The mother cries, watches, implores for her son's safety. And the prayers and the pleas are drowned out by the monotonous sound of the military bands. Guillermo Prieto.
On August 12th, the American advance guard reached a crossroads 30 miles east of Mexico City. But to Santa Anna's surprise, Scott avoided El Peñon entirely, circling around the capital to the south.
It's a turning movement. It's a classic turning movement. He has turned Mexican defenders out of their position without firing a shot. And that is the genius of Scott in this war, his ability to do that.
Santa Anna quickly reformed his defenses, placing 20,000 soldiers in a 5-mile line between Scott and the city. To the U.S. general's east lay soggy marshland and lakes. To the west was a massive field of hardened lava, a no-man's land of sharp, jagged rock called the Pedregal. Santa Anna now had the U.S. Army's approach to the capital blocked. The strategy might have worked, but for the actions of one of Santa Anna's rivals. General Gabriel Valencia was ambitious and powerful, and he saw victory on the battlefield as his path to the presidency. Against orders, he advanced to a position near the village of Contreras. From there, He hoped to engage the U.S. Army and win glory for himself. Valencia thought his flank was protected by what everyone knew as the impassable terrain of the Pedregal. But on August 19th, the Mexican general was shocked when 3,500 U.S. troops appeared out of the volcanic wasteland. On Scott's orders, Robert E. Lee had found a way across. Valencia was now in danger of being cut off from the main body of the Mexican army. Desperately, he appealed for reinforcements. But Santa Anna refused. Valencia is an insubordinate sot, Santa Anna said. Let him spike his guns and retreat. That night, U.S. troops devised a bold plan, a surprise attack on Valencia's rear. Someone was needed to cross the Pedregal and return with more troops. Robert E. Lee volunteered. Working through the night, his way illuminated only by flashes of lightning and the dim light of a lamp, Lee picked his way across the treacherous field of lava and brought reinforcements back. Scott called it the greatest feat of physical and moral courage performed by anyone during the entire campaign. At daybreak on August 20th, U.S. troops launched their attack. The battle lasted only 17 minutes. 700 Mexican soldiers were killed. 813 more were taken prisoner. Among them, 4 generals.
What has occurred is the result of the stupidity committed by the disobedient Valencia and the inconceivable conduct of Santa Anna when he stood by as a motionless spectator watching the ruination of his rival. It is not the first time, nor will it be the last, that the criminal desire of generals to surpass one another results in the loss of nations. Manuel Gomez Pedraza.
Valencia's retreat spread panic through the Mexican ranks. Soon the road to Mexico City was crowded with fleeing soldiers. Scott's troops gave chase.
The double quick was sounded, and the whole advanced at a run. We soon reached the road and turned in hot pursuit. Captain Kirby Smith.
The key to the Mexican army's safe retreat was the crossing at the Churubusco River. Santa Anna had ordered the bridge there held at all costs. From behind the fortified walls of a former monastery, Mexican guns raked the ground in front of the advancing U.S. troops.
Immediately in front of us, at perhaps 500 yards, the roll of the Mexican fire exceeded anything I have ever heard. We were exposed to a dreadful crossfire which could scarcely be resisted. Captain Kirby Smith.
Heads of columns were swept away like chaff, and companies cut in pieces. Lieutenant Holloway was cut down while talking with me, and I thought of the passage, "One shall be taken, and another left." Lieutenant John James Peck.
Slowly, the firing from the Mexican guns at the monastery and bridge began to taper off.
Ammo.
Where's the ammunition?
Those words could be heard all over the place. Soldiers ran from one post to the next to ask their comrades if they had any cartridges. Private Perfecto Falcon.
Colonel Juan Cano, the engineer who had advised Santa Anna at Cerro Gordo, was responsible for the fortification of the monastery.
After a fatal delay, Santa Anna sent munitions. The soldiers rushed to them. The bullets were for weapons of a larger caliber. They say those desperate men tried to load the rifles with stones. Lieutenant Colonel Juan Cano.